What's up, ladies and gents, Noli here, and welcome to another Payday 2 video. Today we're looking at a brand new build, and it's a new concept I've never really played around with before. You guys saw it in the Salem Asylum achievement video, and it is a ton of fun. It's the Pacifist build. Now, that title might be a little on the misleading side, because it's not that we don't intend to kill anybody, it's that we don't intend to do it ourselves. Instead, we're going to utilize potential teammates, AI, or converted cops and sentry guns to do all the dirty work for us. And it's a ton of fun, especially when you can set up every single one of your sentry guns in one area and just mow down enemies, even on the hardest difficulty. I recommend this build for Deathwish. The gameplay you're going to be seeing a little later on is all on Deathwish solo, so it is a really strong build, believe it or not. It can be used on one down, but I feel like that build, that difficulty, I should say, requires you to adhere to a more strict meta. You need your explosive, and then you need your sort of fantastic single target damage weapon, which that is not really what this build is all about, but you can definitely have a load of fun if you're messing around with friends and sentry guns, mowing down enemies even on the hardest difficulty. And if there's anyone out there who'd like to give this build a go with me, I'd love to record a bit of gameplay running 16 sentry guns and 8 converted cops. It sounds like a ton of fun. So to start things off, to sort of explain and get the ideas behind the equipment we take with us on the heist, I suggest we take a look at the skill build. Starting off with the controller tree of Mastermind, Forced Friendship is actually a really good skill, massively underrated, especially if you watched just a little earlier on. The more keen-sighted viewer will have noticed I'm running a ballistic vest, lightweight ballistic, alongside the Croc perk deck, which means we're not actually as survivable as we could be on Deathwish difficulty. So with Forced Friendship aced out, you and your crew gain a bunch of additional damage absorption. At all times with this build, you should have 1, which means that every single instance of damage you receive, the number will be reduced by a single unit, which is surprisingly very effective. It really does mount up, but if on missions with lots of civilians around, you can cable tie them all. Keeping 8 hostages is reasonably easy, giving you 4 damage absorption on every shot. Now, the obviously very important skills with this style of build include Joker and Confidant. They're going to allow you not only to pick up a convert and buff them up, but also to pick up a second one, which is what it's all about. The more converts you have, the more survivability you will have, because the more distracted and more damaged the enemies will be. Finally, in this tree, we have Partners in Crime, giving you some really nice, much-needed buffs for survivability, including increased movement speed and increased health, as well as buffing up the converts even further, making them more effective in combat. Enforcer has a bunch of skills dotted around, though none right at the top. We start things off with Resilience, giving you that armor recovery rate, which is already high on the lightweight ballistic. Now, I think almost every build and almost everyone will unanimously agree that flashbangs are incredibly annoying, and you do want to ace this out. And it is an option on this build. There are points flying around at the end that you can choose to put into anywhere. I, however, do not choose this option because at the end of the day, you're not going to be shooting. So what's a little bit of completely reduced vision? You know, it won't bother you massively. It can cause issues, don't get me wrong, and it is a bit of a risk. But I suggest if you're going to be, for example, fixing a drill, because of course this build is all about doing the objectives while you have your cronies doing the work for you. If you're fixing a drill, what difference does it make whether you can see or not? You know, the objective will still be done. So instead, I choose to ace out Die Hard, again with the idea of interacting with objects, giving you increased damage reduction, and of course, giving our armored ballistic vest a little bit more defense. Finally, Transporter, again, always been a useful skill. Being able to throw bags further will allow you to complete objectives a little bit faster and easier. Ammo Specialist has a couple of reasonably useful skills at the bottom. Scavenger, Bulletstorm, just to get up to and ace out extra lead. Though this is a sentry gun build, thanks to the addition of the skill Jack of all trades, you can bring alongside a secondary. And while that secondary will be reduced in terms of capacity, the additional ammo in the bag will stay, which is really useful and why I pick up extra lead to refill my sentry guns. Technician has the sort of brunt of the engineer skills. Third Law, Eco Sentry, and Sentry Targeting package, all about buffing up your sentry gun and also increasing, or decreasing I should say, the amount of ammo required to place them, which is useful. Obviously going to keep the build a bit more self-sustaining. And again, as I mentioned, Jack of all trades. Basiced out is already really useful, the ability to deploy and interact faster. doubly as fast, I should say, means you can drop those sentry guns out and pick them up really nice and quickly, as well as your ammo. Just a useful skill. Acing it out allows you to bring the ammo, which is again affected by the extra lead skill. Tower defense is, for the sentry gun, it's a blessing and a curse. It's such a long way up the tree, and it means that if you're doing a sentry build like this one, you definitely have to focus on getting all the way up to the top. But if you've got spare skills, this is what makes sentry guns viable. By acing this one out, costing you 12 points, you get 3 additional very useful sentry guns, increasing your firepower. And say a sentry gun does go down, which happens very rarely on Death Wish difficulty, believe it or not, thanks to how surprisingly tanky they are, you will still have a number in your pocket to back you up. Hardware Expert and Drill Sergeant, as I said, we wanted to get those objectives done and we want to get them done as quickly as possible. Spare points go into drill skills. Ghost, Duck and Cover, and Parkour are my personal choice. If you want to go for more, I suppose, viable on Death Wish weapons that don't just look for maxing out concealment, definitely consider picking up Inner Pockets. It's going to allow you to bring more powerful, less concealable weapons, but I don't bother with it in this build because I'm not about the weapons, I'm about the sentry guns. Shockproof is a necessity, I would say, for this style of build, because if you do get tased, especially on the harder difficulties, you're not bringing along weapons that are really viable to take out tasers, and also, you're going to shoot out your really precious ammo, which needs to be used for sentry guns. So, Shockproof is necessary to not only save your ammo, but also save you from a massive headache as you get tased in the harder difficulties and can do nothing about it. Sneaky Bastard, finally, because we're able to keep that concealment really high within this build, it's nice and easy just to basic this one out and get 10% additional dodge chance. There's a couple of additional points in Silent Killer. Actually, one of them is really very useful. Second Wind, when your armor breaks, your movement speed increases by 30% for 5 seconds. With the Ballistic Vest, your armor is going to be going down quite a bit. Movement speed is increased in survivability, and I do like it. Optical Illusions is so essential, though. You're less likely to be targeted by enemies. This is huge. It means that the really problematic enemies will not be the same bother. If you bring along Team AI, you bring along teammates, you convert some cops, and you use the sentry guns, you will virtually never be targeted. Very seldom will bullets fly your way. It does mean that your cops and your sentry guns will be a little less survivable, but the cops are so tanky, and actually up to 1 down difficulty, the sentry guns are as well. So I do recommend this particular skill. It only costs a couple of points. Fugitive, finally, I choose to pick up 9 lives. I recommend this to all of you doing builds for the higher difficulties. The additional chance to get down one more time is really useful, and it's not bad for 4 points at all. Of course, you can choose to put this in Resilience if the flashbangs are really getting you down. So yeah, there you go. That is the build. Let's take a look at the equipment and see how this all comes together by having a look over on the left there. You'll see my stats. Armor sitting at 115.5, which is not bad at all for a ballistic vest. Health at 230, again buffed up in heist when you get a convert. Your overall detection rate is 4, really low. It's exactly where you need it to be. It means that you can pseudo stealth within this build as well. Speed is really nice at just under 40. Dodge at 40, obviously not the highest you can get because it's not the vest, or the suit I should say. But as a lightweight ballistic vest, we do get a chunk more armor. And yeah, standard otherwise. Let's head on over to the equipment. We see the sentry gun and, of course, the secondary ammo bag designed to keep refilling the sentry gun. The primary is the Car 4, modified completely for concealment, sitting at an overall max of 31. Perfect weapon, I would say, for this style of build. It won't do the damage you need on the difficulty, but it will just be an ammo mule for you, sitting at really high concealment. Cobra SMG, I actually really like this weapon and have used it in other Death Wish builds. For example, the good old-fashioned critical minigun build. It's fantastic because it's still a viable weapon even though it gets very high concealment, but this build is not about shooting it. Instead, it's all about bringing along a big ammo capacity weapon. Electric Brass Knuckles sort of suits not only the fact it's got 30 overall concealment, it suits the pacifist elements of this build. It's all about punching them in the back of the neck and electrocuting them as opposed to killing them, and then letting the sentry gun do the damage for you. Now, your throwable is a real toss-up. For me, if you're going for a Death Wish heist, I think 9 times out of 10, I'd rather have the throwing knife because it's fantastic for dealing with bulldozers, cloakers, tasers. And if you get in a sticky situation where, your sentry guns are down, you can't get to them, you can't refill them, your AI are behaving badly, and you need to start killing a couple of enemies, this is perfect. It's replenishable, and it does a ton of damage. But if you want to adhere to that pacifist playstyle, the concussion grenades are a perfect option to cover your back, because they do a massive amount of crowd control, which is really useful to run from objective to objective, and especially when playing with teammates, it can get you out of that sticky situation in a similar fashion. It just isn't a kill option, which I do feel this build may well need if you run it on the harder difficulties. So there we go, that's the setup. Croc perk deck, of course, is designed to buff out our lightweight ballistic and give us that pretty good overall dodge chance. This build is way more survivable than you'd expect it to be. You don't get targeted at all, really. Your AI and sentries are brilliant and tanky, and it's got a ton of movement speed, which, again, increases your survivability. I adore this build. You're about to see some gameplay. It may not be the world's most entertaining gameplay to watch, but I can assure you it's some of the most fun to play. So stepping into the gameplay, you'll pretty much immediately get the gist of it. You set up the sentries, you try and convert as many cops as quickly as possible, and then you run around doing the objective. When things get a bit troublesome, you drop your ammo bag, pick up some ammo, replenish the sentry guns. But the sentry guns are so self-sustaining, it's unbelievable, especially when you're playing it solo, as I am here on Death Wish. The sentry guns will take out so many enemies that when you just run over to where the battle was, you don't even have to be involved in it. You'll pick up basically all the ammo the sentry guns have fired out, and you can replace them for free. It's only when you can't really reach the ammo bags, or the ammo drops, I should say, you need to drop your equipment ammo bag. So that's just how fantastic this build can be. You'll immediately see I spend most of my time, not in the most entertaining fashion, opening deposit boxes on this particular heist. Of course, it's the Armoured Transport Park. I haven't decided if I'll throw in a little bit of additional gameplay, but I've done loads of solo Death Wish missions with this build. I'm just trying to showcase it as best as possible, showcase the ideas behind it, and showcase how much fun it is and how viable it is on those harder difficulties, despite the fact you never really have to shoot a bullet. Of course, if push comes to shove and you have to, the weapons I've chosen are not the best for getting you out of sticky situations, and as I suggested, you may want to bring along the throwing knife, but of course you can build it slightly differently. You can build slightly better weapons for those harder difficulties. As I've already mentioned, one down is a bit of a tough one with this build. I'd love to try it out and see how many people running this build, like how well it could do on one down difficulty, but your survivability is a problem. You do need to adhere to a very specific meta and playstyle on one down, which this one does not do. This one throws the meta out the window, and I love it, to be honest. I've always looked for quirky builds that are a bit different to play and have some design ideas and synergy within them, and this is one of those. And I think you'll surprise people online when you go into a very difficult mission with such an odd setup and such, high overall concealment, just how effective you as an individual will be toward the heist. It's a real surprise. It was just a test build, really. I was just trying to think of ways to complete the Salem Asylum achievement. And then when I got down into it, I realized, damn, this build is actually doing work. The changes Overkill made to the skills made the game so much more diverse, and it opened doors for builds like these that are a ton of fun to play. However, I do have to mention a couple of issues I've ran across with the build. They're not glaring issues, they're more frustrating niggles, to be honest. Take, for example, when the sentry gun shoots at your convert, or about to be convert cop. So you get the enemy, his hands are up, you're about to cuff him and turn him to your side, and what happens? The sentry gun shoots him down. For some reason, Overkill has not programmed the sentry guns to consider your in the process of being converted cops as a non-threat, which I suppose is kind of realistic. They can't tell if a guy's got their hands up, but it's always a bit sad shooting a man while he's down and trying to surrender himself. But it's quite funny because if you don't want to shoot on this build, you can hit a point when you've got your two converted cops where you're just running around telling the cops to, put your hands up so they're incapacitated and the sentry gun will mow them down. So it's a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword, which can make getting a converted cop a little difficult, especially at the start of the heist. One thing you can do is set up the sentry, get it to hurt the cop, pick it up, and, as you're dominating him, have the sentry gun out the way so it won't do that. Another problem I found with the sentry gun is just how much you have to reload it. You'll see I go in this heist, I go open up a deposit box, fantastic, no problems. Oh wait, all 4 of my sentries have just ran out of ammo, better go replenish every single one of them. And it's not that the ammo isn't sustainable, it's just that I don't think the sentry guns are taking enough initial ammo to be really sustained, because they do shoot non-stop on these missions, especially wide open missions, where you're getting rushed by a lot of enemies on the hardest difficulty. So those are some of the complaints I personally have had with the build. Again, they're not massive glaring faults, just things that I feel like Overkill could do with making little adjustments to make this particular build, playstyle and setup a little more streamless to play, and again, a little more fun. But the gameplay is not the most entertaining, but it certainly is some of the most fun to play and mess around with. It's such a new, refreshing style that I feel like I might run this for a fair bit longer. So again, those of you out there who'd like to try this build out, let me know, and I'd love to try it out alongside you, so we can try and rule the world without shooting a bullet. That's the idea, and I imagine it'll be loads of fun. So do try this build out. Again, let me know in the comments down below if you've got any adjustments you would make to the build, maybe picking up right all the way to the top of the ammo tree as an option. You'd have to drop some quite important skills, I imagine, to do that, but you know, it can give you more replenishable ammo, meaning you can last even longer in heist. But believe it or not, this build will last for 25-30 minutes in a heist quite easily without you ever having to panic, especially if you're running with teammates. That's just solo I'm talking about. So it's ideal for sort of hold the fort missions. I think Rats Day 1, you know, Cook-Off springs to mind of being a really fun option for this particular setup and build. And again, viable on all difficulties, though it's not designed for one down. So guys, give this build a go, have a load of fun with it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the gameplay. Coming up for you, I have a couple more builds, maybe some more focused on one down. I know that difficulty is still giving people problems. And then finally, I got some good ideas for some mod videos. There's some brand new fantastic mods coming out recently, and especially HUD mods that have been hugely improved over time. So can't wait to show those off to you and do a couple of reviews for them. I'll see you guys in the next one.